Hello, everyone, and inside the latest Locked On Canadiens, it's a Mailbag Friday, and y'all are really excited about Ivan Demidov.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1106 of Locked On Canadiens, your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day of the week, wherever you get your daily podcast, Google, Apple, Spotify, or here on YouTube.com. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Some terms do apply. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matla, and I'm joined, as always, by the active stick, Laura Saba. Laura, I know it is July 4th in the U.S., but I know Canada had off on Monday, so we're both in a weird rhythm this week with holidays and such. How are you doing on this, what is very humid Thursday here in Buffalo?
Well, we just recorded our special announcement, so if you missed that, go check out the bonus that we just released on Thursday evening. Other than that, I am also melting in this humidity, but I'm so excited. Like there seems to be a renewed enthusiasm for the Montreal Canadiens because we're all excited about Ivan Demidov.
Yes, and it is Friday, which means it is our Friday mailbag, and we got a ton of questions, so if we don't get to everything, it is not because we dislike you. It's not because we hate you. It's because we had a lot of questions in here. And
we will answer them next week.
Yes, that we will get to them. Whatever we don't get to in this episode will probably get put into Sunday's episode for Monday morning. So don't fear if you don't hear your question on Friday, you'll probably get it on Monday morning. We are slowly entering the off season. We are still at 5 shows a week until the end of the month, where it'll switch down to 3 shows a week going into August. But Laura, you are the master of mailbag ceremonies here. So what is our first question of the evening here?
So I'm going to start with, I love this username, Zach, and then in parentheses, Demidov season, because it is. 1, who would you say is the most underrated prospect in the Habs prospect pool? And 2, Scott, what has been your favorite experience or favorite moment while being part of the Locked On Canadiens podcast? And then he modifies it to say that I'm free to answer the second question as well. Scott, first, who would you say is the most underrated prospect? And then share your favorite memory or favorite moment.
I think underrated, just purely in people not penciling him into any future plans whatsoever, is Philip Machar. Someone who was drafted in the Slafkovsky draft. Slafkovsky has obviously gone on to pretty big heights so far, signing that new 8-year extension, and then was followed directly by Owen Beck, who has been incredible at every level, and then also Lane Hutson, Adam Engstrom. He's been overshadowed from his own draft class that I think people have kind of forgotten. He's going to be going to the AHL this year. He's someone that I think is going to be on a team with a lot of these other prospects, and that him being overshadowed has not made him a lesser prospect. He's someone that I really think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about a little bit. I would say Jaden Struble in this spot, but I don't really consider them they're still a prospect, but they were an NHL player at this point based on last season. So I can't really put them in here. And Oliver Kapanen would be my runner-up pick to that, but I think I'm going to stick with Philip Machar, because I believe in him like I believe in Joe Hendry. Clap, clap, clap. And I'm really excited to see what he does at the North American professional level this year. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say Oliver Kapanen is a great one because it's mostly under the radar because he's in Europe, right? Like the scouts in Europe are scouting friends in Europe have all noticed him. It's really, he doesn't get talked about a lot because he's not directly available to us.
Yeah. And for the second part of that, I said this in our bonus episode, but I think that entire run to the Stanley Cup is probably one of my favorite moments in the history of this podcast in the near 5 years that I have been one of your co-hosts for that. Just every part about that, from the 3-1 comeback to sweeping the Jets to beating Vegas to just getting to that Stanley Cup final, it all was absolutely incredible on so many levels, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. That was the most fun I've had doing this show. Wins or losses we always had something to talk about, and always put on a really entertaining show. And that's when the hard work really started to show between the both of us here. But I think that is absolutely going to be what I am putting in that spot there.
So we've got another Demidov-related question, and this comes from J. Mark St. Pierre. Michkov is playing this year after we heard he had commitments in Russia for 2 to 3 more years. Is it possible Demidov can play here this year? Is he committed to SK or the junior team again? So my understanding of this is that the CBA prevents the Canadiens from buying another player's contract, but there is possibility that the leagues / the teams can come to an agreement, although unlikely, right?
Yes, a player has to buy out their own contract in the KHL to be able to come over and fulfill their North American entry level deals. So Mishkov buying that whole thing has a lot of shady parts that I'm not 100% on, and that the Flyers helped with this, which is not allowed as far as I'm aware of. But for me, I think Ken Hughes being an agent too is also trying to stay on the best terms with the KHL to make sure that, hey, if we're going to draft other players from this in the future, Bogdan Konyushkov is over there, Evgeny Volokhin is over there, Kanan Makar is over there, or Makar Kanan. If I mispronounce that, regardless, they are playing in that league right now. In that, hey, if they end up coming good in the leagues that they are in, Hughes being an agent is going to want to keep this as cordial as possible. And I know it's very strange and weird. Demidov said he has 1 year left and he intends to fulfill that. I'm not one to doubt him on that. Some people have said that, oh, well, they sent him to the MHL again. The Canadiens are just going to bring him over. That's been reported in the media. I haven't seen that anywhere. Like, if you want to send me the article from somewhere like The Athletic or from one of the big,
One of the reputable.
Yes. Please let me know. But as of right now, I don't think the Canadiens are going to do what the Flyers did, because the Flyers are treading a real thin line with what's been going on, considering everything that happened with Ivan Fedotov before that, which was a whole mess. And then now this. They're not exactly serving cocktails, hugging and kissing babies and stuff with this. They're probably rubbing a lot of people the wrong way who are also trying to operate a business on their end.
Right. And so, there has been talk from the media that if they were to send him to the MHL, it is much better for him to be here. That is not in dispute. And I have seen media members opine on this, but I've not seen from a reputable source that the Canadiens are just going to bring him over. I don't think it's as simple as people think, even though it was possible with Matvei Michkov. And then real quick, before we move into our next segment, we've got a great question from Jeff the Red. Describe your instant reactions when you saw Celine Dion come out and then when she said Demidov's name.
I yelled loud enough that it startled the dog who was sleeping and my fiance who was watching TV next to me. I had my headphones in watching, and she is watching me with my head in my hands, waiting to see who they would pick at that spot. And I, fist pumping forward, almost punched my laptop over and everything. But Celine Dion, regardless, was an incredible touch for the draft. I don't think that needs to be said at all at this point. And then capping it off with Ivan Demidov was phenomenal, including the little thing that some people are forgetting. A lot of the prospects walking up and having the showgirl or entertainer, whatever you want to refer to their title as, helping them with their jackets, and that he has his jacket off and he is confident, he is ready. The kid has swagger for days, and I like that entire moment is just going to be ingrained in my head here. Just an absolutely incredible series of events in Vegas for that.
For me, it was when I saw Celine, all I thought was damn, what a flex. Imagine being the team that can bring Celine out to dramatic pause before announcing your pick. Truly, to me, that was a huge flex. And then obviously with Demidov, Scott was there for this. I couldn't believe it. I was like, is this real? Am I really seeing this? Did I really see this? Did I really hear that name? Am I really watching this? It was disbelief, because I didn't think that he was going to be available. And then when he was available, I got nervous that the Canadiens were not going to pick him.
You wish your head of PR could have Celine Dion in a Rolodex to call up on a whim, to not only flex that she is one of the most famous singers in the world, but also to stick it to Vegas, who tried to claim her during the 2021 playoffs, so much so that they got a cease and desist. But regardless, the Canadiens get the laugh on this. An incredible moment. I thought for sure maybe it would have been Carey Price or Shea Weber just went into the Hockey Hall of Fame, but Weber was there for Caufield and Carey Price was there for David Reinbacher. So just a phenomenal moment all the way around. We have so many more mailbag questions coming up, and we're going to jump into all of those again in our next segment. But first, passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships, and it is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, you're not burning cash. And with all the parts you need at prices that you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So make sure you keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit available only to United States customers. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. It is our Friday mailbag episode, so we are diving into all of the questions that you have been asking us on Twitter. You can tweet us at LO_Canadiens or hit us up on Gmail, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com, for any of your longer questions, concerns, comments. We love hearing from all of you as we enter the off season. If you have something you think we should touch on, please reach out, email us. We always love to listen to our fans and listeners and such. Laura, what else do we have in the mailbag today?
Brady Piercy asks, who is the prospect the Habs drafted outside the first 3 picks that you are most excited or intrigued about?
I'm torn between Owen Protz and Tyler Thorpe. I think Tyler Thorpe being so big, but having some of the smarts up here that can be worked on, really intrigues me because he's gigantic. Like, he's Michael McCarron sized almost, but he seems to have more of hockey IQ between the ears. But Owen Protz being the, as we keep saying, smart violence on the ice with positioning and using leverage and everything, really stands out to me as the kind of guy that really, even if he's a bottom pairing defenseman, someone that can do all the little things right is so important. I am going to shout out one of my coworkers that I was in the prize, and one of our coworkers here at the network. Hetty Kalakash just put together a really great thread on Logan Sawyer as well about his strengths, is what needs to be worked on and everything. Highly recommend you go check that out because there's a lot of good information in there and a lot of reason to be excited. Work to be done, but now that I'm looking at this through the lens that he has provided for us, absolutely incredible.
So for me, it is Owen Protz, simply because I have never really heard the term smart violence. So I'm excited to see what that's all about. Next question, back to Jeff the Red. What are your way too early thoughts on the Habs' top 2 lines once Demidov has arrived?
The good news is I am working on an article for Habs Eyes on the Prize about this, how the future now looks different with Ivan Demidov as part of this organization. But I think going into next year, if we are penciling in Demidov for a top 6 role, which is probably fair right now, and if it's not him, you have someone like Joshua Waugh who might be ready to step into that role as well. Or if there's a free agent signing or something like that, they can put him in the best spot to succeed. But my thought is, you have your top line together. You have Cole, you have Nick, you have Juraj on the top line. That's probably not going to change, but it could if Ivan Demidov is absolutely that guy. And I have no reason to not believe that he is that guy right now. And then on line 2, you can put Newhook, you can put Doc, and you can put Demidov there right now. And you can always flex pieces around. Put Joshua on the second line and bump Newhook down to an exploitation role. Maybe Owen Beck steps up and is, a really good NHL level center out of the blue. It's hard to say, but I think that Caufield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky, Newhook, Doc, Demidov is a pretty good looking young top 6. I think the oldest person in that top 6
Kirby
is
Doc or Nick Suzuki?
Nick Suzuki, I think. At that, I think is the oldest person in that top 6, which is he's just 24 years old right now. We're entering
phenomenal
prime windows, baby. We are entering right into that time where it's like, oh, they're still getting better. Like that aging curve is still going up for in terms of point production and wins above replacement and all that other fancy stuff there. That window is slowly opening with all these younger pieces getting added to that. And that's not to say, what if one of the younger guys, surprises? What if Philip Machar comes in and he's just dynamite? What if Joshua Watt takes a step? What if Riley Kidney or Sean Farrell takes a step? There's opportunities. And that's the biggest thing for the Canadiens this year and next year is there's opportunities. Your time to seize it is now because that window is going to wait for no man and you don't want to be the one left behind on it.
And we've got a question from our really good friend, Robert Rice. With the trading of Kovacevic, do you think this is all the tinkering we will see regarding the Habs blue line before the regular season starts? As it stands, we have a presumptive grouping of Matheson, Savard, Gouli, Jacky, Harris, Barron, but also need to weigh the emergence of Struble, Hudson, Reinbacher, and Mailloux. While obviously some of the latter 4 will start in the AHL, how do you project the likelihood someone like Harris or even Savard gets moved to make room for someone like Hudson?
I think that there's a very good chance, and I was talking with Laura about this before the show, is that the Canadiens have signed one NHL free agent since free agency opened. That was Alex Barré-Boulet. They traded Jonathan Kovacevic as well. Kent Hughes doesn't do a lot of his business directly in that first window of free agency. He lets the dust kind of settle, and then he starts seeing what teams missed out on things. Who did you miss out on? Who did you miss out on? Did you need help with something? Look at when the Monahan trade came down. Mm-hmm. It wasn't right away. Kent Hughes waits and bides his time to see where our team's at. And maybe by the end of this week, you start to hear something, if anything. But I think we're entering a window where Kent Hughes is going to start, hey, so you missed out on Stamkos, or hey, you missed out on Brett Pesce or whomever. And he starts making his calls all over the place and puts something together because Ehlers, Zegras, McGroarty, Natchez, they're all still out there on the market right now. There's also offer sheet opportunities. I'm not saying he's going to do that, but you never know. It's Kent Hughes.
He doesn't strike me as the kind of person who would use an offer sheet, except when it's really a situation where he's confident that it's going to work out.
I think with his knowledge in the agent universe too, is that if he were to call up someone and be like, hey, would they be okay with this? The agent might say, I don't know. He really still wants to play here. Let's say maybe not an idea, but someone's like, no, he wants the hell out of here. I can see Kent Hughes leveraging what he knows in the market and from some of these players to make things happen. And because it is the Canadiens, I can't predict what the trade is going to be because it's going to come out of nowhere. He might trade Mike Matheson next week for all we know. I'm not saying I would love that. I didn't love the Jeff Petrie trade at first, and then I ate my words on that. But the unexpected is what's going to come from Ken Hughes here, is that he always makes his trade after all the free agent dust is settled. There's a few names getting signed here and there, Tarasenko, Roslovic, etc. Now is the time when Ken Hughes is absolutely in his bag.
Our good friend Randy Hansen asks us, he has 2 questions. We're going to do one before the break and then one after. First question is, today I learned that Michael Hage is a Lebanese Canadian, and I would like Laura to teach us how to say Hage correctly. Can Laura pronounce his name for us correctly? All right, so he's going by Hage. I don't actually know how far back his Lebanese roots go, but if you look at him, I mean, as a Lebanese person, I was like, oh, why didn't I see this before? But in, like, I guess in Arabic, or the name that it should be pronounced as in the original is Haj. So, like, he's Michael Haj. So that is the correct pronunciation. And earlier this month, we were talking about Basha and how he was a Lebanese player, and how, you know, if there's a Lebanese or Armenian player, like, I will know about it and root it out. And I don't know, maybe it was the spelling. I don't understand why I did not clock this until Randy confirmed it for me. But anyways, that is all the more reason for people like myself and our good friend Hattie Kalakash of Knocked On NHL Prospects to root for this guy. I'm so excited about him no matter what, whether he was Lebanese or not. But I'm just also so excited to share heritage with somebody who could have a significant impact on the Montreal Canadiens in the future.
Yeah, we talked about this in the Eyes on the Prize chat because we looked at, it's like he's from Montreal originally, moved to Toronto, and I was like, but he's not a traditional, and I was trying to figure out where his ethnicity came from in there, just from the way that he spoke and the way that his name was spelled in his parents' names, and I couldn't nail it down even Googling. So I want to thank wherever that information came from. Thank you for solving that brain bug in the back of my head there. So we will get to Randy's other question and some more coming up in our final segment. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. It is our final mailbag segment for this Friday. If we don't get to some of your questions, like I said, they will be going out on Monday. If you have questions that came up over the weekend or after hearing this episode, tweet us at LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com as well. We love questions. We do. Good questions, especially, or questions about nothing. We might talk about the entire Not Like
about
Us.
Craig Rivet.
Yes.
We will remember some dudes early next week because I did get a question about Craig Rivet.
Yes, and if not, we'll just talk about the Not Like Us music video that Kendrick dropped in the middle of us recording this, which is diabolical and amazing on Independence Day, no less. So, Laura, what was Randy's second question?
Funny. All right, Randy's second question is Jakub Dobeš the forgotten spoke in the Hab goalie wheel? Why isn't he getting any consideration as an NHL quality goalie?
I don't think he's not getting any consideration. I think it's just that he's played one professional season now, and he played well in that season, but we are going to wait to see where he is actually at this year. This will be telling because Jacob Fowler's coming as well, whom, well, I like Dobeš, and I think Quentin Miller is, taking this as a challenge as well, and Evgeny Volokin's been performing very well in Russia. Jacob Fowler is the top goaltending prospect in the system. And that's not a slight on Dobeš, who is competitive. He's a guy who wants to win and likes to win. And I think this year's going to be very telling. If he's really good, they might move him up to be the backup and let Fowler get a bunch of those AHL starts and bring him along, kind of like Nashville did with Yaroslav Askarov, and slowly bring him up and wait till Montembeau's time maybe is done and then have two younger guys in net there. I don't think he's forgotten. I just think he's overshadowed just a little bit right now.
We've got a question from Taylor K. Hi, all. Do you guys feel like an underappreciated part of Demidov being drafted is his potential to steal the spotlight away from players like Slaf and Cole? I feel like it can be potentially more freeing for them with a true star taking most of the attention and letting them play more freely. So I think with both of these guys, like they've definitely shown an ability to play under pressure. But I do like the idea of the spotlight being shared or being bounced around between these guys, because to me, what it says is that the Canadiens are acquiring depth, and they're acquiring depth at an elite skill level.
I think for me, it's almost the other way around, is that having Cole and Nick and Slaf shields the spotlight from the new guy right now, in that he doesn't have to come in and immediately be the savior of this franchise. He is a crucial big piece of this franchise. But I look at the attention that Slafkovsky got when he got here and struggled a little bit off the start, is that this franchise is failing. Everything is going wrong. Having these established pieces in place, and to an extent, guys like Hudson and Reinbacher, etc., all help split the attention here. They are no longer waiting on, we need one player to save us. We need this one player to save the franchise here. He's going to bring this team to another level, I think. But I think that the spotlight is now split. They are not all focused on, this has to be the piece that works, or we're going back to square one again. And I think that having a very young and established core right now helps more than anything else. If this was the team years and years ago, Demidov would be, you have to make it or we're screwed. I think that now he can slowly transition. Yes.
Sorry, no. You said I think he can slowly transition and acclimate to the team, right?
Yes.
Yes. So we are going to run out of time, unfortunately, for all of the questions. But guess what? We've got dueling brothers. Like, I'm so excited about this. We've got brothers sending in mailbag questions. If you were listening a couple of weeks ago when one of our listeners wrote in to say, I recently discovered my brother listens to your podcast, from the way that he phrased his mailbag question. I'm really excited about that, and we will talk about that next week. And I do promise we'll talk about the Craig Rivet question because it's really fun, and all that's coming up. But Scott, I did want to read to you from one of our earliest ever listeners, Mike B, and the subject line says, "Thank you," and it says, "Dear Scott, I was saddened to hear of your leaving the podcast. I just wanted to say thank you, and I wish you the very best in whatever you will be doing. Dear Laura, thank you for staying. Dear Laura and Scott, thanks for your always being my first listen of the day. I listen to several other podcasts and all very good, but you guys are always first. Thank you to you both. From Belleville, Ontario. P.S. Scott, if you see me someday, save me a seat on the bus going down the Golden Road."
It is still a very bizarre thing to me that Laura and I have been recognized in public and by voice only by people who listen to this show and have heard so many nice things, and that I can't really put into words how nice it is. I don't always do things because I want to hear praise for them. I do or did this show because I love doing what I do and talking about the Canadiens, but it is always really nice to know that just doing a half an hour podcast 3 to 5 times a week makes such an impact for some people. I don't have fully the words to, express my gratitude for that, but I am very grateful to know that we have been able to do that for people on a lot of different levels, because that's, what we're about here. The Canadiens fandom is one very big dysfunctional family, and friends and everything like that. So I'm glad that we continue to be your first listen of the day, even when things around the Canadiens are not so great. I can't thank you enough, Michael, for all the kind words and all the support over the last 5 years.
And that goes for me too, obviously. And I think it's really funny that you said people recognize us by voice, because my voice has been like this for the past 2 weeks. I really hope that my regular voice comes back at some point. But in the meantime, you can hear this version of my voice and, my regular version of my voice and Scott, et cetera, wherever you get your podcasts. Scott, do you want to do the honors and sing us out?
Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back on Monday. Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your daily podcasts, Google, Apple, Spotify, or on youtube.com. Tweet us at LO_Canadiens if you got more mailbag questions. LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. You can follow Laura at The Active Stick. You can follow myself at Scott Matla. I may be leaving the show, but I am sure as hell not going anywhere. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody, and we will see you all next time.